Hello and welcome to the first episode of Coffee or Die. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the origins of coffee. Where did it come from? As well as the journey that it takes to get from farm to cup. So let's start with where coffee came from. All right, so the origin story, the commercially acceptable version is that a goat herder named Kaldi in Ethiopia noticed that one day his goats were eating these cherries from a plant and that they were bursting full of energy, dancing around. So as a result, what did he do? Well, he took some of these cherries himself, put them in his mouth, and wow, he too was hyped the fuck up. So he took that stuff down to the local villagers where they said, yo, Kaldi, this shit is tight. So here we have regular cherries. These aren't coffee cherries, but for today, they will serve our purposes just fine. For those of you that don't know, coffee grows on a tree, and it typically grows in these little cherries. Now, what we want is that seed inside. So step one, after the coffee has been harvested, is to sort which is overripe, underripe, and just right. Next, we need to dry the coffee, all right? The coffee can be dried like this first. This is a natural process where it would dry just as a whole cherry itself. Next, we could do a honey process. This would be if I pop this cherry, and now we've got this seed with a bit of the mucilage still around it. This would be what a honey process would look like. Now, if I were wanting to do a wash process, it would look a bit like this. And as you can see, that mucilage is off of the seed and it is gonna dry just like that. I'm not gonna waste this fucking cherry. This is fucking delicious. So after we finished processing coffee, well, it still needs to be milled. It's wrapped in this really husky parchment that needs to be removed from the coffee. So we end up removing that husk, and in turn, we get green coffee. Now this is green coffee. This is a P365 XL. So now that we've got our green coffee, we need to inspect it, grade it, and make sure not only the farmers are getting paid for the quality of coffee they have, but make sure that we're buying the right amount for our local roasteries. So we end up doing what's called a cupping. We evaluate the coffee. We can identify positive or negative attributes, not only in the way it smells, but the way it tastes. And that's a fine cup of coffee. We can also visually inspect the green coffee. We can use grading forms and identify if there's any Category 1, Category 2 defects that may prevent us from wanting to buy this coffee. This is where we can identify things that may reduce the quality of that coffee, such as insect damage, foreign matter, or maybe even mold. Now that we've harvested, processed, milled, and evaluated our coffee, we're ready to start looking at shipping. Now, coffee has traditionally been transported in these burlap or jute sacks. However, there are some plastic options that are available now that keep water and other undesirable external factors from entering our green coffee. Coffee is typically shipped from Africa, South America, and Asia, and ends up getting sent to our roasters here in the United States. So when our green coffee arrives in the United States, roasters will then take that green coffee and then roast it in a facility just like this. Now, we can go however light or dark we want to with these coffees, depending on the attributes we're trying to express in them, but it's important that we don't roast them too dark, as this becomes a major fire hazard. What's up? Oh, fuck! Okay, now that our coffee is roasted, what our roaster will then do is allow that roasted coffee to rest. And this just lets it off gas. There's a lot of CO2 that is rapidly escaping from that coffee over time. Depending on how dark or light you roast it, more gas will escape at slower, faster rates. But the coffee at this point can then be packaged after resting. What then you as the consumer get is coffee that you know and love in a bag ready to be brewed. Now we can open that up and there's a variety of ways that we can brew it, just we want to meet your preferences. Some people like the Chemex, and that's fine. Maybe you're pressed for time and traveling and you want to use an AeroPress. What I always recommend doing is we weigh out the coffee I'll be using, make sure I get the best out of every cup. As I spill it everywhere. I then might decide I want to grind that coffee, maybe finer or coarser, depending on what I want to taste in that cup. It's all in the grind size more, which is actually accurate. We'll go over that when we get into our grinding episode, but grind and water temperature and even how much coffee we're using is very, very important. Now with the AeroPress, we could go with something maybe like the inverted method. This is convenient for my setting right now. Making quite a mess. Don't be afraid to blow it, it's all right. I'll add some water. I'm typically getting pretty good cups out of the AeroPress, doing something like a 1:11 to 1:12 ratio. Pump a filter or two in and we're good to go. Press out that excess air and wait a minute and a half. Guess I should probably finish that cup from earlier. And now we're ready for another. Minute and a half goes by, I'll flip, shake to make sure all that coffee is off the plunger, and press. Slowly and evenly. Don't force it, gentlemen. Just ease it in there. Now what you can do is actually pull up right here, and that'll keep your AeroPress from leaking excess coffee. And now we have a fine cup of coffee ready to drink. So what have we gone over today? Well, we've covered the origins of coffee as well as the process it takes to get from farm to cup. Keep this in mind and remember that the cups you make have value. When someone asks you, hey, why do you put so much effort into your cups of coffee? You can say, fuck off. What are you, a federal agent? Trying to figure out what I'm doing to my cups of coffee, collecting data on it, and then selling that data to foreign entities? We got something for guys like you right here, brother. So thanks for joining us on this episode of Coffee or Die. It's truly been a pleasure, and I'll catch you on the next episode. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, like and subscribe to this channel. It'll truly help out, and that will make sure that you don't miss out on any great content in the future. Oh, Jerry, this is fucking delicious. Okay, I gotta wash this off my hands real quick, and then